I missed hearing this theme. I started playing Fire Emblem back on the good old Game Boy Advance. After seeing Marth and Roy in Melee, they were pretty cool. I was interested, and then I fell in love. These games charmed me with their characters, vibrant colors, exciting gameplay, and some of the best sprite animations ever. Now, Fire Emblem took a big hit after Shadow Dragon, which someday we're gonna have to talk about. So going into the release of Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS, Nintendo told Intelligent Systems it would be the last game in the series. Unless it sold well. Now, I didn't even know these stories at the time, but I loved Awakening. I'm an advocate. It is a must-have for the 3DS, even for new players. It's a great place to start, and it reminded me why I love the series. Though it's not my favorite installment, it has issues, it was able to establish Fire Emblem as one of Nintendo's best franchises, and it is my favorite video game series of all time. Awakening became one of the best-selling in the franchise, especially here in the West. And then at some point we started complaining that there were too many FE characters in Smash. My name is Kevin, and for Beyond Polygons, this is how Fire Emblem Awakening saved Fire Emblem. And you know what? With a title like that, Merry Happy New Year. Welcome to the Robin creation screen. This was a big deal. Finally, we can insert ourselves into the story. We can make our own characters with their own special stats, and they were the tactician, just like Mark from Rekka no Ken. But now they can hurt people. I've already mentioned how Corrin from Fire Emblem Fates is a bad main unit. Robin is way better. Robin is loved by fans, and in the story plays as sidekick to Chrom for the first arcs of the game. But the final act sees them as a leading role with the lords of the game. This is already much better than Fates, simply because Chrom is the main lord, and he's not half bad. I normally use Robin as a way to put myself into the game, and because the story is more about Chrom and his Kingdom of Elise, I don't feel like I'm taking away from the story. I'm just a part of it. For footage of this run though, I made an OC. Meet Tori. I don't know, she looks like a Tori. She's like, she's pretty average. I'm not good at this. The main unit can be loved for their stats and customizability, but by the end of the game, their inclusion feels a lot tighter to the story. There's also a good plot twist. It's not that original, but it's something new for the series. I approve. There was a Japanese exclusive DS game, which was the first to have a created character, but don't play that one. Apparently that one's even worse than Shadow Dragon. I haven't played it yet, I don't know. The Tactician class is equipped with swords and magic tomes, a great combination, plus with the new second seals, characters can switch to other classes. Robin has access to literally every possible class. In this run, I made Tori a Wyvern Rider because I can. Being tied to the story while not overshadowing the main characters makes Robin a lot better than Corrin, and the entire story benefits from it. But Robin does get one more thing that was new to Western audiences at the time. Robin can get married, and so can everyone else. Now again, in my Fire Emblem Fates video, I talked about how it was waifu emblem to the extreme, and it's not that it's a bad concept. It's great for building like your perfect team, but Fire Emblem Awakening was like the precursor to it, and I think because of that, I appreciate it way more. Supporting had always been restricted to like certain characters that can pair up, and here we have that again. We have Chrom and Cordelia, for example. They can't support, and that's important. Cordelia is a hard-working overachiever for the Elysian Pegasus Knights. Though she would do anything to be with Chrom, she's well aware that he loves someone else, and these kinds of conversations are actually reflected in their support conversations, well, specifically Cordelia's. This is the right level of depth to give the characters. Chrom can only marry 4 possible units, 5 if Robin is female. This is much closer to prior games in the series. The writing in these conversations is much more focused and ingrained in the entire plot and world that this game builds. It is better to not let everyone pair with anyone. Chrom has his group, Sumiya also lacks a lot of support options, And okay, everyone else can pair with whoever other opposite sex person they want, but the cast isn't as big as Fate's, and that makes it much more bearable here. I feel like the Shepherds are well written and really drive the story better, with the relationships being discussed throughout the adventure. There's that cutscene early on where Chrom gets saved by Sumiya, and it's super adorable, and it kinda ties them together as a sort of canon pairing that at least the game is talking about prior to any of the support conversations. But you still don't have to do this pairing. By stats, Olivia or Robin are the better options. Also, did anyone notice how cool the cutscenes look in this game?
I see you're awake now.
Some of the characters are pretty basic, like Kellum, who is this game's meme. Kellum's character is just that everyone doesn't notice him because he's so quiet and he keeps to himself. Like literally they're like bumping into him and then acting surprised when he like does things like he's a ghost or something. And then you look at the box art and there he is. And I remember I laughed so much when I first saw this. He was on the cover all along. Chrom, going back, reminds me a lot of Hector from Rekka no Ken. He's aggressive and of short temper, but he is honorable to a fault. The other lord, spoilers, Lucina, has a lot of strength, yet fear, having seen the end of the world. Yeah, the children are pretty well written too. And speaking of, babies! They were the newest thing in this game, and now they're part of the story. If you've played Smash, you already know of Lucina, Chrom's daughter from the future. These offspring units were new to Western audiences, and unlike Fates, I feel like Awakening at least found a way to write them into the story a lot better. The political drama, it's simple enough. It's Elise and Plegia, and they're just feuding kingdoms, but one is pretty clearly evil. I mean, look at him. But as the arcs continue, Robin earns the respect of Chrom and the Shepherds, after initially being found in a field. And let's just say, going back to the game, I see what Robin really is. Robin is the player's perspective, and though it's kind of also spoilers, the game ends with Robin waking up in that same field, as if letting the cycle continue. And it all ties back to the big bad guy of the game. Grima is so strong that time is able to warp and shape space and send the children of our heroes back in time to help stop that bad future. It is a bit of a stretch to explain why these kids are here, but it does explain Robin's character as well, and at least, it shows Grima's strength. And this is why I want to talk crap about Fate so much, because Awakening is doing everything better. The children are the offspring of the female characters. Chrom has one as well, and so does Robin. Gameplay-wise, the pairing up functions really make grinding supports pretty easy. Once characters reach the S-rank support, you unlock a paralog chapter, and that's where the child can be recruited. This was a very new thing at the time. Now I like these chapters. They all had enough storytelling to actually get to know these characters a bit. A lot of them show traits of their mothers. They're just cute, little wholesome chapters. I can understand why even Awakening is a bit too focused on the waifu side of things, but these paralogs don't open until you get Lucina. Prior to this, a lot of story has happened, and if you haven't played it yet, Emerin, the Exalt of Elise, has probably one of the most memorable scenes in the entire game. So much so that I actually won't spoil it, and it's pretty good. I just think that having these 9 chapters or so before the game really opens up allows the story to come in. You get to know the story a little bit before all the rampant lovemaking comes in. The overall writing in this game is pretty well done, and there are some pretty heavy things said in the game. Gangrel is an awesome early villain. He reminds me of Narcian. We gotta talk about that game too. Valadar is a pretty decent villain, but I will admit that whole Valm part is the most boring arc of the game. And look, I said this game ain't perfect, okay? By the end, the story becomes pretty good. There are some funny moments early on as well. Sumiya, who's a bit of a klutz, she wants to snap Chrom out of a funk, so she punches him in the face because she forgot that slaps were open-handed. And now that I've described why the supports and characters are way better here than in Fates, in my opinion, let's talk about the gameplay. I feel like overall this is a typical Fire Emblem game, just done very well. You got the weapon triangle, weapons have durability, and in between chapters players get to go to a map screen. It's just like Sacred Stones. It's got all the classes you'd expect. Swordmasters, Great Knights, Wyvern Riders, Archers, Mages, the list goes on. Though the branching promotes have some new additions, it feels like a proper successor to the GBA games, and maybe even the Radiance games. Classes have skills, something first seen back in Genealogy of the Holy War, and these skills can be collected by going through different classes with the second seal, which actually resets your level this time. Don't worry, there's lots of places to train in this game though. Even DLC that's explicitly designed for grinding. The combat is what you'd expect, but there's a new pair-up option. Unlike Fates, it is a lot more random. Characters always have a chance to make follow-up attacks or block an incoming attack. The issue is, the chance of getting any sort of support action is purely based on their rating, so married couples become unstoppable wrecking tag team of doom. Though I will say the maps feel a lot more cramped this time around. It's something that would take forever to explain, and we'll touch on it in a future video. But it just pretty much makes all maps a bum rush, and there's just combat everywhere, and enemies are like on you in an instant. It can make maps either really hard or really brain dead easy if you just grind. Because you can always do that. But now back to skills and how it kind of connects back to the children. Parents pass down their skills to their children, some of which have completely different options for classes. So now you can pass a variety of skills from a variety of classes and build it all into one character. To make the perfect team takes a lot of time, but it's totally doable and rewarding when you do. Especially for the harder DLC maps and some of those spot pass maps. I never even ended up doing them. But unlike Fates, again, everything needs to be contained within the file. You'll want to get Gale Force, the most broken skill in the game, on as many units as possible. But to get Dark Flyers to level 15 is a lot of grinding. Plus you'd have to second seal a few other characters into Pegasus Knights in the first place. It just takes up so much time. And because it takes so much time, I feel like Awakening is worth having multiple playthroughs of. You can try new pairings, you can give units different skills. It's fun. Does this make the game easy? Yes. Yes, it does. But because you can't pass down skills from past playthroughs, you have to plan out each pairing in advance. I'm not huge on grinding, that's why I like Rekka no Ken and stuff like that. I want to advance the story. So I draw the line long before you see these builds with like really perfected, they got all the breakers and they went through all these different classes to do it. It's whatever. If you're more into building like a super team, you can just keep the game on the final chapter, do all the DLC and spot maps. There's a lot of game to play here. Of the few new classes, everyone can wield staves now, which is weird, but nice to see more options for healers. The War Cleric was always cool to me. That's a Griffin Riders, what? Oh, there's the Street Pass functionality. It's good. It's a 3DS game. There's also tons of random collectibles around the chapters that are throwbacks to other games in the series. This was also the first time we got those like Einer jars and things like that. There was a lot in this game, and I think it's because they thought it was going to be the last game. Do you want to just skip combat? Just press start. Heck, skip the entire enemy phase. I don't got time for that. Though I truly prefer the connected and story-driven gameplay of Rekka no Ken and the other earlier games, Awakening feels up there with Sacred Stones. And for those who started with Awakening or who want to start with Awakening, I think it shows what Fire Emblem is all about, and in a positive light. The actual Fire Emblem is in the game, and it's featured throughout the story. It's a good game. As I mentioned, Fire Emblem Awakening is not the perfect Fire Emblem game. I just think it really saved the series after a bit of a rocky time on the DS. If it was the last, it would have been a good send-off, but it's also easy to remember because it's what brought me back into the series and why I love it so much. It was a rebirth of the series. I like replaying Awakening. I can try different characters, different pairings, put different skills on everyone and their children. What's important is that each run is self-contained. I have to make my plans in advance. You know who I never use? Laurent. Let's give him aptitude and max out his stats. Let's do it. What class do I want Morgan to start with? There are so many variables to consider, and if you do kind of mix in a lot of story while you're grinding, you know, you put yourself on a timer because Chrom is forcibly married by one point in the plot. This may have been the beginning of waifu emblem, but I don't mind it here. It's not as aggressive as it was in Fates, and half the characters aren't supposed to be related. Thank gods Chrom can't marry Lissa. This is how to really integrate the already understood support mechanics and evolve on them in a way that was, you know, they'd done it before in Japan, but it was new to us, and I took to it very easily. And this game went on to sell very well for a reason. Maybe it's because Nintendo pushed it with marketing, but I do feel that Awakening is a great place to start for those new to the series. And again, it just rekindled my love for Fire Emblem. I do feel it holds up for even longtime fans, especially if you're okay with like Sacred Stones and stuff. Because I like that balance. I like the option. Rekka no Ken's great, but you know, sometimes the map screen's cool. But there is one game where they did the whole waifu emblem thing perfectly. And for that, we have to go further back and look at where the marriage and babies really started, on the continent of Yggdrasil. That's right, next time we'll be looking at Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. Hang on. And I like this game so much. It was never released to North America, and some might say it's like the sleeper hit of the entire series. I don't want to say it's the best. I'm giving away the video. Be sure to subscribe and see when that comes out, and leave a comment saying, "For Elise!" That's how I know that you got to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.